Okay, well, here we're back. So we've got our setup, and like I said, with the code from last time, it should work still, no problem. So if you recall, we have two pieces to our code, two main chunks. We have this chunk called setup, and this happens first, and it runs once. What setup is doing is setting pin 13, which is right here, to an output, and then we're going to use pin mode to set pin 11 as an output as well. So you're telling the Arduino to internally set up these pins to run as outputs. Okay, and then the second half of our code runs over and over and over and over and over again, and it's called loop. Okay, so what loop is doing, it's using digital write, so it's writing, which is an output, pin 13 to high, the state of high. Remember, high means on. High means you're putting the pin at high voltage, so you're setting the pin to 5 volts. Well, when we set 13 here to 5 volts and it goes through this LED and through this resistor to ground, well, then you know that that LED is going to turn on. So we put digital write 13 high, turns the LED on. Then we use the command delay to just pause. And we're waiting here for 500 milliseconds. So that's equivalent to half a second. So we're going to wait half a second. Then we're going to write 13 to low. Low means off, or 0 volts. And then we're going to turn the LED off and wait for half a second. Then we're going to digital write to pin 11 high. We're going to put pin 11 high volts, which turns the LED connected to pin 11 on. Then we're going to chill out, delay for 500 milliseconds, delay for half a second. Then we're going to turn it off here, digital write 11 low, turn 11 off, and wait half a second. And then immediately it jumps right back up to here, on, off, on, off. So we start the simulation, and you'll see on, off, on, off. Okay, now we want to connect the button so the button can do something with our code, with the LEDs. So in my mind, a good way to start is, what if we could program this so when you press the button and held it down, the LEDs blinked faster, for example. So if currently they're blinking at 500, what if they blinked at 250 when you held the button down? So if the button's pressed, blink fast, otherwise blink slow. And that's going to be our mission here. So I'm going to put that up top in a comment. So I'm going to put // and that means comment. So it's not part of the code, but it's there just for you to put notes. So I'm going to say objective is to blink LEDs fast when button is held down. LEDs will blink slow when button is not pressed. All right, so there's, I leave my notes in the top, okay, and you guys can use these comments as well, like I did here, comment, / as comments. Okay, so what I'm going to do first, this works well for blinking our LEDs slow. So let's make a chunk that's going to blink it fast. So I'm going to copy, highlight Command C, and I'm going to put it right above. I'm going to put Command V as paste. So now I have two of the same. Let's make it 250. So it's going to blink twice as fast. And now let's check it out. Let's run it. So it's going to blink on, off, 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 on, off. Let's check if that works. On, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. So it seems to work fine. All right, so now we're ready to put some new commands in and things. Now the first thing we need to do, we need to tell the Arduino to set pin 1 as an input, because a button allows you to send information in. So where do we do that? Where do we set up our Arduino? Right up here. Okay, so we're going to do another pin mode, but we're going to do pin mode pin 1, comma, input. So now when we run it, the Arduino knows that you're going to be using this pin as an input. Okay, we can start it. It doesn't change anything. It's just something that's setting up our Arduino. Now, it's a good idea, my friends, when you're putting in lines of code, let's say you mess up the line. Let's say instead of a 1, you put an I. It should give you an error. Okay, so yeah, so there's an error. It highlights in orange, and it seems to tell you down here, line 9, character row 11, error. I was not declared. So it's saying on line 9 you have an error. And then if you look close, you say, it should be a 1. And then when you start it, it will clear that error. Okay, so when you put in a new line of code, always compile that code, check it, run it, and see if it breaks, okay, as you go. Don't put 100 lines and then check it, okay? All right, so there we go. So now our pin 1 is an input. The next thing we need to do is we need to have a way to read that button. Okay, read that button. So just like we have a command that's digital write, well, there's another one that's called digital read. Digital read. And its syntax is similar. We put the number of the pin there, and that's it. So we're going to read pin 1. Now, just running this by itself is going to come up with an answer. There's going to be an answer to this. This command returns either a true or a false. Okay, it returns a high or a low. Is the pin low? Is the pin connected to ground? Or is the pin high? Is it connected to 5 volts? So this command needs to put that answer somewhere. So what we're going to set up is known as a variable, okay? And we're going to set up our variable in between the setup block and the loop block, okay? So we're going to make a variable right here. And that variable, we're going to use the most, kind of basic variable, introductory level, is called an integer. So this variable can hold numbers, essentially. So how do we set up an integer? Let's do it. We just write int. Notice it went purple. And we give it a name. What do we want to call this place that we're going to store the answer? So a variable is like a place to store information. So we're going to store this answer in a variable, and let's call it choice. And then semicolon. So now we have a variable declared here. We've just declared a variable, okay? An integer. And we named it choice. And we named it, not named in. And, all right. So we've just created in the memory of our IC here, whoopsie, we've created a little spot in the memory called choice, okay? We've put aside a little chunk of memory for integers, for numbers only, and we're calling that place choice, okay? So now when we want to access that place, that piece of memory, or put things into the memory, we just have to use the word choice down below. Okay, so let's put that in action. Remember, when we use the digital read command, it is checking pin number 1, in our case 1, and it's either going to return the value of 1 for on or 0 for off. Okay, 1 means on, high, 0 means off. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the answer into the variable called choice. So how do you do that? Well, it's kind of the opposite way that you write equations in math class, but we're going to write the answer spot first. Choice equals digital read of pin 1. So we're saying put the result of digitally reading pin 1 into the variable choice. Okay, so when the command comes down here, it says the command reads from left to right. So it says pin 1, read digitally, and put the result into choice. Put the answer into choice. So now the answer, the result of that command, is in memory, stored, either 1 or 0, on or off, high or low. Okay, and that is going to be put into the variable choice. Okay, so now we've just put a little piece of information into our memory of our microcontroller here, and that will be used to decide, do we either blink fast or do we blink slow? Okay, so we're going to say if choice is high, if choice is on, if the button is pressed, we want to blink fast. Otherwise, let's blink slow.